So we are getting close to the halfway point of Lent. And I thought that it might be a good time to start talking about Job. We haven't talked about Job yet. We have talked about a few other people. Yeah, here we go. And I'll probably take a few days to talk about Job because there's the introduction and then Job, a lot of the book of Job is this back and forth between Job and his friends about the nature of God's punishment. And then at the end, I think God does speak to Job. And he has this one friend, Elihu, who gives probably one of the more compelling arguments about Job's predicament. Not really rather talking about you deserve to be punished, but talking about the nature of why these things happen. Yeah, at the end, the Lord shows up in a whirlwind. So spoilers, sorry. It's the book of Job. I think it's okay to give spoilers. And the Lord talks about, how dare you question me? Because it wasn't really the Lord punishing him anyway. I mean, we'll get into that in just a moment. So, there was a man in the land of Uz called Job, and this man was an upright and just man, one that feared God and eschewed evil, and he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and his family was very great, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and banqueted at their houses, every one his day, and sent and called their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And when the days of their banqueting were gone about, Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job thought, it may be that my sons have sinned and blasphemed God in their hearts. Thus did Job every day. Now on a day when the children of God came and stood before the Lord, Satan came also among them. Then the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord, saying, From compassing the earth to and from walking in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou not considered my servant Job, how none is like him in the earth? So, I guess God is not capable of committing the sin of pride. But also that often people have speculated that the book of Job is a piece of satire. And some people debate as to whether it should have actually been included in the Bible at all, due to its satirical nature. But of course, it's fun to think about what has and hasn't been included in the Bible. I think it's a good addition. I think it provides good discourse. An upright and just man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doeth Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But stretch out now thine hand, and touch all that he hath, to see if he will not blaspheme thee to thy face. Then the Lord said unto Satan, Lo, all that he hath is in thine hand, only upon himself shalt thou not stretch out thine hand. So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord. And on a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing and the asses feeding in their places, and the Sabaeans came violently and took them. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, but I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And whiles he was yet speaking, another came and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burnt up the sheep and the servants, and devoured them. But I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And whiles he was yet speaking, another came and said, The Chaldeans sat on 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have taken them, and have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, but I only am escaped alone to tell thee. And whilst he was yet speaking, came another and said, Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from beyond the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, which fell upon the children, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Then Job arose and rent his garment, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground, and worshipped, and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord hath given, and the Lord hath taken it. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this did not Job sin, nor charge God foolishly. So even though the motivation did not come from God, all of these horrible things happened to Job, and even though all these horrible things happened, he did not blame God for his problems. He doesn't mention Satan either. He's just like, that's the nature of these things. And in fact, you kind of see a precursor to this where when his sons and daughters banquet together, he prays for them and offers for them on their behalf. Part of this is piousness, of course, or piety, but also that Job very much seems to have a sense that there are many things that go unseen in this world, and it is not always his place to know of them. And then I'll read part 2 also, because it's pretty short. Maybe I'll get through part 3 as well, because then when we get to part 4, that's when his friends start with their arguments to Job about the nature of these things. And on a day the children of God came and stood before the Lord, and Satan came also among them, and stood before the Lord. Then the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered to the Lord, and said, From compassing the earth to and from walking in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou not considered my servant Job, how none is like him in the earth? An upright and just man, one that feareth God, and escheweth evil. For yet he continueth in his uprightness, although thou movedst me against him, to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord, and said, Skin for skin, and all that ever a man hath will he give for his life. So, yeah, I guess it doesn't really say. Because here in part 1, or chapter 1, the Lord says unto Satan, you also have the power by which to remove all of these things from Job. And now here, the Lord is saying, and I've removed all these things from him, and yet he continues in his uprightness. So I'm a little confused about that. Skin for skin, and all that ever a man hath will he give for his life. But stretch now out thine hand, and touch his bones and his flesh, to see if he will not blaspheme thee to thy face. Then the Lord said unto Satan, Lo, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So again, the Lord is kind of like passing this responsibility of, oh, you want to see this happen, then you do it, to Satan. Interesting. But then taking credit for it later. Yeah. So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils, from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took a potsherd to scrape him, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, Doest thou continue yet in thine uprightness? Blaspheme God, and die. But he said unto her, Thou speakest like a foolish woman. What? Shall we receive good at the hands of God, and not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place, to wit, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they were agreed together to come to lament with him and to comfort him. So when they lift up their eyes afar off, they knew him not. Therefore they lift up their voices and wept. And every one of them rent his garment and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward the heaven. So they sate by him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that the grief was very great. So now he's got his 3 best friends there with him. Let's see what happens next. And then they'll get into the discourse in chapter 4. Afterward, Job opened his mouth and cursed his day. And so cursed his day. But is he blaspheming yet? Is he cursing God? And Job cried out and said, Let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night when it was said, There is a man-child conceived. Let the day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. But let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let the cloud remain upon it, and let them make it fearful as a bitter day. Let darkness possess that night. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year, nor let it come into the count of the months. Yea, desolate be that night, and let no joy be in it. Let them that curse the day, being ready to renew their mourning, curse it. Let the stars of the twilight be dim through the darkness of it. Let it look for light, but have none, neither let it see the dawning of the day. Because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrow from mine eyes. Why died I not in the birth, or why died I not when I came out of the womb? Why did the knees prevent me, and why did I suck the breasts? For so should I now have lien and been quiet. I should have slept then and been at rest, with the kings and counselors of the earth, which have builded themselves desolate places, or with the princes that had gold and have filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not hid as an untimely birth, either as infants which have not seen the light? The wicked have there ceased from their tyranny, and there they that labored valiantly are at rest. The prisoners rest together, and hear not the voice of the oppressor. There are small and great, and the servant is free from his master. Wherefore is the light given to him that is in misery, and life unto them that have heavy hearts, which long for death, and if it come not, they would even search it more than treasures, which joy for gladness and rejoice when they can find the grave. Why is the light given to the man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hedged in? For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the water. For the thing I feared is come upon me, and the thing that I was afraid of is come unto me. I had no peace, neither had I quietness, neither had I rest, yet trouble has come. So we can see that in this portion, in this chapter, rather than cursing God, Job is cursing himself. Job is saying, why was I born? Why was even the day that I was born is cursed? Why did my mother's womb not reject me? All kinds of things against his own nature, rather than to curse and blaspheme God. Which is a very, I think, emotionally mature thing to do. Not the most emotionally mature thing to do, but he's been through a lot. We can cut Job some slack here. So I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, always, about the nature of this book and whether or not you think it was satire, intended as satire, whether or not you think it was intended as some kind of parable. I think it's definitely a parable, possibly satire. And your own opinions of the work. I hope all of you are having a blessed Lent. Do also tell me how your Lent is going down in the comments. And I look forward to seeing all of you again very soon.